degree, and that's why I'm so obsessed with primary sources and research and how it's done correctly so we can debunk all Trump's lies. Now you're going to see why. So now, why would Trump need to take over DC, a gerrymander? Like, how do I know he's doing a coup? Because this happened before. So I'm going to play a short video about it. Now, I'm not saying this for the people in here because the people in here are generally brilliant. So this is not for the people listening to this in here, but for any MAGA people in the shadows, because you guys get confused. So throughout, right after the Civil War, the Dixiecrats, Democrats were, I just want to be clear, were conservatives in the South, the same people that perpetuated the transatlantic slave trade, who profited off of it. They've always been the same people, conservatives in the South. Okay, so when you hear this guy say Democrats, he's talking about conservatives in the South. This is something called the Mississippi Plan, which Trump probably doesn't know about, but most of Trump's plan, it was not created by him. It's created by conservative think tanks that are like, yeah, we did it once, we could do it again. This is what they did once during Reconstruction, and they're absolutely doing it again right now.
Is there a connection between Trump sending the...
Oh, yeah, and this is Edward T. O'Donnell. He's a great historian if you want to look him up.
...military and National Guard and ICE into Los Angeles and Washington, D.C., and his recent announcement that he's going to abolish mail-in voting and voting machines. Absolutely, and it's bad, really bad. Trump is going to use the military, National Guard, and ICE to disrupt the elections in 2026 and 2028. How am I so certain of this? Well, I'm an American historian, and I can tell you that it's happened before in America. The only difference is that previous subversions of democracy were carried out not by the U.S. military, but rather by state and local law enforcement. Take the period known as Reconstruction that followed the Civil War. The late 1860s witnessed a revolution in which black men gained the right to vote, and for a time, America operated as a multiracial democracy. But this democracy was soon crushed by force through what came to be known as the Mississippi Plan. First in Mississippi and then across the South, armed white supremacist militias affiliated with the Democratic Party, along with local police, sheriff's deputies, and other members of law enforcement, attacked Republican political rallies, killing hundreds of African Americans. They also threatened, assaulted, and assassinated political organizers and candidates. The result? Tens of thousands of terrorized African Americans stayed away from polling sites, and Democrats swept to victory and reestablished whites-only rule.
Seem like they might be doing that to Hispanic people now? I wonder.
Trump's version of the Mississippi Plan in 2026 and 2028 won't need to employ much or even any violence to succeed. First, Trump would need to establish that he can make demonstrably false claims about an insurrection in LA and a crime wave in DC to deploy the military and National Guard against American civilians. Check. Next, Trump would need to ramp up his false claims about the 2020 election being stolen by the Democrats, who, he says, plan to commit more massive fraud via mail-in ballots and voting machines in 2026 and 2028. Check. Then, since it's clear he has no intention of leaving office in 2029, Trump would need to start joking about having a third term, even though the Constitution prohibits it. Check. Then, as the election approaches, all Trump needs to do is create fake election fraud crises in swing states and purple congressional districts to justify sending in the military and National Guard to arrest election officials, surround polling sites, seize ballots and voting machines, and stop vote counting. At a minimum, soldiers could set up checkpoints to make it hard for voters to reach polling sites on Election Day. And let's not forget about ICE. They could be unleashed to terrorize Latino communities and drive down voter turnout. Trump probably hopes mobilizing the military and National Guard against American citizens will distract the public from the Epstein files, Ukraine, and inflation. But Trump's real objective here is to stay in office forever. Let's say it together, people. It's a 5-alarm fire and our democracy is burning. The only question is, what are we going to do about it?
Amen. And I was talking about this yesterday. As we watched Trump try to erase slavery, I was talking about how during the middle passage of the transatlantic slave trade, 2 million Africans drowned in the ocean just on the way here. Like, which is more than all the people that have died in every war America has fought since 1776. Like, it's important as Trump continues to try to lie, obfuscate, and erase history that we understand what happened, what conservatives did in the South following the Civil War, what happened during Reconstruction, like, which was the decimation of education, right? During slavery, it was illegal for a slave to even learn to read or do math because education is upward mobility. If you can if you give people education, they can organize, right? It's a lot easier to organize if you can read and write. And the destruction of the Department of Education, I mean, all of this mirrors Reconstruction. This is Jim Crow to a mother effing T. It's just hilarious that MAGA, mediocre white men are so dumb they don't realize it's happening to them. You are the black people. Like, I mean, and I talk about this book I like to talk about. It's called The Wages of Whiteness, which I always suggest everyone write. It's this idea that during Reconstruction, right, the social contract with white males who were actually not much better off than slaves. They're working in factories with no rights, no recourse, not a livable wage. They're losing hands and legs, and actually slaves were much more valuable because of how much they cost, right? That was a lifetime investment. It was like buying a house back then. So oftentimes slaves had more access to medical care than even the average white man. But that's what the wages of whiteness were about. In order to fool white men into thinking, oh, no, not you guys. You're not slaves. You're not slaves. It was this social contract based on the color of skin. Hey, let's make white men feel special, right? We'll treat them slightly better than African slaves, right? We'll pull the police will harass them less. They won't be lynched. And that's the wages of whiteness. This social contract of, hey, your skin has social capital, even though you are too dumb to notice, we're robbing you too, right? Capitalism, you are a slave in capitalism. You are working like a dog and handing the surplus to your capitalist overlords. But don't worry, but you're white, so you're cool, you're better. Right? Like, I highly recommend everyone look into The Wages of Whiteness and also just the stories around that. Like, capitalism, you don't have to be technically a slave. We're all slaves. And that's where The Wages of Whiteness get mediocre white men confused. Well, I'm a male. I'm better than women. Well, I have white skin, so I'm better than brown and black people. Are you? Or are you just an idiot? Like, which one is it? Can you correctly identify who's robbing you? Bet you can't, because you all voted in the last election based on, well, Donald Trump said brown people have more money. Sorry, I can't say it without laughing. You guys can't even figure out who's robbing you. You are a slave. We're all slaves. Unless you're part of the grift, like, I get it. And I was talking about this. I think there's people benefiting from the MAGA cottage industry, like the Charlie Kirks. But I mean, still, mathematically, that doesn't compare to, unless you're a billionaire, you're being robbed and you're an idiot. And I think sometimes Republican politicians and like Fox News pundits and people that work for Turning Point USA, they're sort of they get thrown these scraps and they're like, look, I'm moving upwards. Like, I'm important. Yeah. So you don't notice you're also a slave. Like, you might be the dumbest of all the dumbs. It's hard to tell, but sorry, I digress. I've had a lot of thoughts when I was making this outline. Like, I cannot believe all this is happening. And that was the point, right?
Sophisticated now than computers.
They've successfully done it. In the past, the Department of Education was always starved by Republicans, and this is why. If we wait for decades and decades, people will get dumb enough, and they won't have been taught history, so they won't see any of this coming. And that's where we are now. We got mediocre white males and some Karens backing Donald Trump and being like, he loves me. He said brown people have my money. Like, that's where we're literally at. Well, use the supercomputer you're watching this live on, and why don't you figure out who's stealing from you? You can do it. I know it.
day. $175 billion in the bill that was just signed to reinforce the ranks of ICE, Homeland Security, for what is increasingly becoming self-evident to anyone with eyes wide open and any level of objectivity, a private army for Donald Trump, owing an oath only to him, not the Constitution of the United States. You just heard from the Speaker that vote in mail ballots are being threatened by the President of the United States. 80% of Californians, no coincidence, 80% submitted their ballots in the last election, 86% in 2022, 88 in 2020. He's trying to rig the election. He's trying to set up the conditions where he can claim that the elections were not won fair and square. Open your eyes to what is going on in the United States of America in 2025. That's what this is about.
Now you guys have a Holocaust on your hands because you don't know the definition of concentration camp and or Holocaust. You guys are now, I cannot wait for history to remember MAGA in the way you will all be remembered as fascists, creators, and apathetic purveyors of a Holocaust and genocide. And that's what slavery was. The transatlantic slave trade, understand, that's a Holocaust that, just like there was a Holocaust in Europe in the 1940s. Just because you don't understand what a Holocaust is, doesn't mean it didn't happen here. Like, doesn't mean we didn't do the same thing to indigenous people. Look up the Trail of Tears, read a book, you can do it. You don't even have to read, your phone will read it to you aloud. Figure out what's going on. But you won't, I'm sure. Because Trump said brown people have...
Those enduring values that we celebrate, just celebrated 249 years, the best of the Roman Republic, Greek democracy, the rule of law, co-equal branches of government, popular sovereignty. What we'll celebrate, will we? Next year, the 250th anniversary.
And Trump is using the 250th anniversary and saying, this is why we need to erase the memory of slavery. This is why museums need to erase the truth about the history of America. That seems like a very weird thing to do. Thank you, Joby. It's so good to see you. And seems like a very strange thing to do. Thank you for the bow. I love those bows. I'm going to start annoying people and be like JoJo on Dance Moms with constant bows in. And I think I played this clip yesterday. This is just like, I like numbers and statistical analysis. I love watching. Last night, Fox News pretty much at least a minute did not go by without someone on Fox News saying that Gavin Newsom, this was a horrible strategy for Gavin Newsom and no one was ever going to believe it or trust him. And he's just whining and complaining. Turns out that's not true. Seems like America loves watching Republicans cry and whine while they're being mocked endlessly. It's the strangest thing.
I absolutely think it's showing signs of working. And let's take a look at the voters who know Gavin Newsom best. Those voters out in California, those California Democrats. California Democrats and Newsom for governor. You go back to 2023, just 35% wanted him to run for president. Look at the percentage now who are excited for a run for president for Gavin Newsom. What is that? That's a 40-point climb. My goodness gracious. A rising tide of support for Gavin Newsom. Remember back in 2023, the majority of Democrats did not want Joe Biden to run for another term, but California Democrats and Gavin Newsom's home state did not want him to run either. And now 75% are excited for him to run. And more than that, he's getting a higher percentage of the vote than Kamala Harris in her home state. He is beating the former vice president, who of course was the Democratic nominee in 2024. As I said, a rising.
She made the mistake of being a woman. That's what I mean. Kamala Harris, no offense, Gavin Newsom is also a lawyer. I've listened to both of them talk extensively, but yeah, Gavin Newsom just gets a lot of social. I mean, as we know in America, just being if I was a white male, there would be 5,000 people in this live right now. But just by nature of being a woman, mediocre, insecure men can't hear when intelligent women speak.
Tide of support for the California governor.
And we always say it's very early to be looking at 2028 polling, but why is California polling so important?
Why is it so important? Because I want you to take a look. It's one of those benchmarks, the home state polling for presidential candidates. If they can't win the primary in their home state, they ain't going to win anywhere. What are we talking about? Pres nominees and home state primaries. All of them won. All the nominees won. And all of them led in the early polls. So yes, winning California is not tantamount to winning the nomination, but it is one of those stepping stones that you have to make it to if you in fact want to win the nomination historically. And of course in California, it has the most delegates out of any of the states that of course take part in the Democratic primary.
How are things looking nationally for Democrats?
Okay, so we're looking at the states, right? We're looking at Gavin Newsom's home state, but how about nationally? Does what we're seeing in California translate nationally? Chance of being the 2028 Democratic nominee according to the prediction markets. Back on June 1st, before all this strategy, before all this confrontation with Donald Trump, you saw Gavin Newsom 11%, AOC at 10, Buttigieg at 8. Look at where Gavin Newsom has shot up to now. 27% now is the clear front runner, not at 50% plus, but still the clear front runner, at least according to the prediction markets. What we're seeing in California
Sorry, I did this accidentally.
isn't staying in California, at least at this particular point.
Thanks, Harry. It's good to see you.
Nice to see you.
I also just want to point out in that last graphic, they're comparing a very wealthy white male who has run the fourth largest economy in the world to a Hispanic woman and a gay man. So I don't even think those are good comparisons. And I'm not saying that because, believe me, if I think pound for pound, AOC and Pete Buttigieg are the most intelligent Democrats we have. I love them. I'm just saying, if I have learned any lesson in watching, and I always talk about, I see the world in patterns. That's all I see. And I know that when smart women speak, men can't listen. When insecure men run into a very intelligent, very capable gay man, they, for some reason, can't hear them speaking because of their own weird insecurity about their sexuality that they're projecting onto everyone else. I think the largest message is white men in America, get in some therapy. Get in some therapy, truly, because Trump is because you guys are all insecure and dumb. So let's get you guys back in school where we teach you to read and do basic math. And we need to get you guys in therapy because we're going to lose our entire country. And I could get into mathematical projections and how if we just had elected someone else, America would be thriving right now. And because you guys are insecure and idiotic, now we're in this situation. Now we're in a literal hellscape. Truly, we're in a hellscape because you guys are insecure. Because no one told you that equality and equity is not a pie, where if too many pieces are taken out, you don't get any. So I'm sorry. But that's why truly, if I could describe in the dumbest way possible why we're in this situation, it's because white men didn't pass third grade math. I was a second grade teacher and we would give little slices of a pie when we're teaching fractions. And we'd be like, oh, you have 1/4 of the pie. And for some reason, white men are so insecure that they don't believe, when it comes to economics, that a pie grows in size, right? And it just 10 years ago, Trump started saying, which, by the way, Trump didn't come up with this. This is Schittler. And even before Schittler, it's the great replacement theory. There's only so much pie. And once the Browns come and take your piece of pie, there's nothing left for you. Nothing could be more mathematically idiotic or untrue, but white men swear to God it's true because they're idiots. I mean MAGA white men. I think there's plenty of white men on the left that can correctly, speak to the economy. But that is truly what MAGA men think, because someone told them that. Like, someone's taking my pie. Some brown person's going to eat my lemon meringue pie. I got to do something about that. Like, when in fact, it is the exact opposite. This entire economy, the expansion of the American economy, was brought to you by what? Immigration. Brown people immigrating, brown and black people immigrating here. And that is going to become more essential. I always talk about this, and you can look up the gross population decline in the first world. Where do you think the most able-bodied workers are going to be by 2040? Let me give you a hint. Africa. So you guys better get real cool with black and brown people coming here and doing you a solid. Better bury some of that racism. We're all going to be slaves in abject poverty. Figure out how the economy works. And the gross, remember how we were the number one gross domestic product in the world? Trailing 6-month gross domestic product expansion, 1.2%. Now, that means nothing to MAGA men because you guys don't know anything about the economy anyways. Now, what did we average in 2024 under Joe Biden, which was only projected to go up and to the right? 2.4% in 2024. First 6 months of 2025, or first 6 months of Trump's presidency, so January to June, 1.2%. That is effing abysmal. Abysmal. And I know you guys can't do math, but you got to hear that and understand there's a big problem. It's worse with labor. We are in stagflation. Thank you, Kimber, for resubscribing. I appreciate it so, so much. So at any point, it's time for you all to figure out who's robbing you. And here's just a short clip to help you out, insecure MAGA men, with who is robbing you, who does have your money. And it's going to come as a shock. It's not brown people with nothing picking strawberries in the field.
Since January, the president's bought more than $100 million worth of corporate and municipal bonds. That is according to filings from the Office of Government Ethics. This kind of active trading by a president is unprecedented. It means Donald Trump stands to benefit or suffer losses, depending on how these bonds perform. But these bonds include banks, and they include companies, and they include...
Understand. So under your nose, while you're convinced brown people who have nothing have your money, Donald Trump now controls the legislative branch. Why does that matter? Because he can drive up and down the value of his own stock. Now, I know, MAGA, you guys are delusional and on your knees for Trump, but prior to his second term in office, he probably had about 500 to 600 million in assets. And I mean, real estate included. I think he has just over 3 billion now, 3.2 maybe max billion. That all came from the last 6-7 months of him grifting and cheating. And now he has a vested interest in, and he can stop. The legislative branch does not work independently. We're in an autocracy where he can drive up his own personal wealth by the legislation that comes through Congress, because you guys are idiots. And someone told you because you were born a white male, you were not an idiot.
Local governments that are literally directly impacted by the decisions that Donald Trump is making in the White House.
How is that ethical? Yeah, Liza, it's not ethical. That's the point. Trump is violating the Constitution at every turn. If there's one thing I've realized, whenever I would hear MAGA debate, do what they think is speech and debate on the internet, they would always refer to the Constitution as if it was in their pocket, and every night before they went to bed, they had a Bible and a Constitution, and they were reading from it and praying. No, they don't know anything that's in the Constitution. Not a goddamn thing. Nothing. Not even the history of the Second Amendment, I come to learn they don't know. They don't understand the First Amendment. Like, these people do not know. So that also might be why they don't understand that Trump has violated the Constitution at every turn, because they have no idea what the Constitution says, that he's eroded all the checks and balances. There's nothing, but we are so far past ethical. This is a hostile takeover of the largest gross domestic product of the country. There's nothing none of this hasn't been ethical since his first coup.
It's not even Donald Trump working as a businessman. It's Donald Trump working as an insider trader. It's Donald Trump in a position to influence the interest rates that determine the value of the bonds he's buying. It's that simple. The other thing,
that's why he wants interest rates to be lowered. His bonds are worth more than. And this all happened while he was in the office of the president. And I had to sit through, I can't describe to you how many millions, I would guess probably $50 million were spent on Republicans in Congress having fake hearings, impeachment hearings about Biden, accusing people of things that, if you can read and do math, you could just easily tell weren't true. Accusing Biden of being corrupt. Meanwhile, Grifty Grifterton has undermined the Constitution and is doing a hostile takeover, while racist, uneducated, conservative men are still accusing brown and black people of having their money.
it is a drop in the bucket. The $100 million in bonds he bought is a drop in the bucket in terms of the grift that's going on in the White House around cryptocurrencies. His net worth, I think, jumped by more than $2.5 billion based on paper, but it's on cryptocurrency assets he holds at a time when his family had absolutely no experience in the business before he became president. It's a product that he disparaged as a scam before he became president. Once he became president, he was able to influence federal policies that raised the value of cryptocurrencies, bringing them aboard as federally recognized assets in banks, legitimizing it through various federal regulations that govern the market, all of which he exercises great authority over and which he was not disinterested in because his own net worth was directly affected by it.
This is why he's threatening the Fed. This is why he wants to install someone to do his bidding in the Fed. God. And by the way, Kimber and Owls Are Magic, thank you so much for resubscribing. I appreciate it so much. Let's keep tapping the screen. We should be at 250K. We're almost at 200. Tap, tap, tap. This is a super important video from George Conway about, this is what I was talking about. The answer is not either or. Is Trump going to go from blue city to blue city and wreak havoc? Of course he is. And he is having the National Guard inhabit and control the Capitol conveniently, to quote Gavin Newsom, up until and through Election Day. Because if I was a dictator who was involved in a hostile takeover, I would control the Capitol too. What happened the last time he tried a coup? Right? He didn't have control of the military, and he's rectified that. That's why you don't see any four-star generals, any General Millies, any people that know the Constitution, any people that know the difference between right and wrong. All we see now are idiots from Fox News who used to be on the Real World or Road Rules running shit, because they will never oppose him. That is the point. They will never oppose a thing this guy is doing while we literally watch him take over every cross-section of America.
If Donald Trump gets control of policing in the Capitol to the extent that he seems to desire, which is he wants complete control because that's just the way he is. He wants complete control of anything he deems important to him. think about the consequences of that, because what would have happened if he had had that kind of control on January 6th when he didn't call out the National Guard to defend the Capitol? What if he actually did have control of the Metropolitan Police and the National Guard in the way that he wants?
George, what would have happened on January 20th?
If he would have remained in office, because there would not have been the election of Joe Biden on January 6th. And he would have declared an emergency. And lo and behold, what do you do when you have an emergency? You call in the National Guard.
Mm-hmm.
He would have never left. Some people were saying that what they're doing in D.C. is going to be a model for other cities.
You know that paper.
But I think they're just cutting straight to the chase, because if you want to have a coup.
It's not but, though, George. Agree fully with everything you're saying. It's and. He's never leaving D.C. He's psychologically training people to being used to him declaring constant states of emergency. I was talking yesterday how, because I don't force, I used to force you guys to watch all of Trump's speeches, and then I realized, oh my God, I'm torturing people. But I still watch all Trump. Every time Trump's speaking, I listen. I've heard him at least 10 times in the last 2 weeks saying, well, yeah, I guess if someone attacks America, you just don't have to leave office. That's what he kept saying to Zelensky. That's what he kept implying whenever people, because, which we need to re-examine our support of Israel. And again, I just want to say this. Multiple things can be true at once. I renounce anti-Semitism in all their forms, and I can correctly identify a genocide when I watch one happen in real time. Today, it's officially been declared a famine in Gaza, which, if you're following what's going on there, we already knew that shit. But now they officially have the data to declare a famine, right? We can all renounce anti-Semitism and be like, hey, there's a crazy person who's refusing to hold elections in Israel and is starving a bunch of people in an open air prison to death while we all watch. Both things can be true at once. And Trump is allying himself with people like Putin, like Netanyahu, and using Zelensky. Now, is Zelensky the aggressor? And this is the point I want to point out. Putin is an aggressor. He rolled his tanks into Ukraine and invaded someone else's sovereign territory. Netanyahu is an aggressor, right? Who has people in an open air prison and is terrorizing them, period. Who's attacked every country bordering him while we all watched, is invading other people's sovereign territory and attacking. They are authoritarian aggressors, right? And that Trump likes to be like, but Zelensky's not holding an election. Yeah, because they were actually attacked. The day after Trump said that him and I could spend 2 hours telling you what's going on in Russian media, how they're mocking MAGA. You think I'm mean to MAGA men? God, Russian media 24 hours a day just talks about how stupid MAGA is and how stupid Trump is and how they have no intention of stopping the Ukraine war. The day after Putin went and met Trump, one of the largest, or if not the largest, I think top 3 largest drone attacks Russia has ever unleashed on Ukraine happened the next day. They have no intention of stopping what they're up to. Trump's just running cover for them. He's just some idiot running cover for authoritarian aggression. But Trump likes to point out that Zelensky hasn't held elections. They are under attack from authoritarian aggressors. Right? J.D. Vance did an interview. I don't want to play it, but one of the more disturbing things, he's like, Putin's a soft-spoken guy. This was replayed on Russian state media. Putin's a soft-spoken guy. He's a nice guy. Well, Zelensky comes and they talk shit to him and treat him like a bag of trash. Did Zelensky attack another country? Is Zelensky kidnapping children in Russia? No. Is Zelensky taking over nuclear plants in Russia and leaking radiation? Absolutely not. Is Zelensky unleashing chemical weapons on his own people? Absolutely not. But let's treat Zelensky like a shitbag. That's a great idea. And you know why? Because this is what I've noticed in the patriarchy. Men are so insecure. They never punch up, right? Especially white men. They're always punching down. I had a bad day at work. My boss made me feel small. Where's a woman I could make feel like shit? You know, like they're always punching down. If Trump was a man, he'd punch up. Period. That would be Putin. Why don't you handle a real problem? But instead you're bullying somebody who's under attack? Makes sense. Like, keep punching down, coward. You guys are all cowards. Sorry, I'm very angry about this. And this is from, I don't want to get the August 13th. And this is what I'm saying. Like, this is the manosphere. Joe Rogan helped Trump get elected. And he should never sleep again because of that. And now on August 13th, this is, I mean, he's been saying stuff for months and I've been playing it, but, you know, I got to keep an eye on what's going on over there. Now Joe Rogan's like, hey, you guys, wait a minute. Like, I think some really bad things are happening. Oh, you think, Joe?
People just showing up and pulling people out of schools and pulling people out of Home Depot and pulling people that were just hardworking people that maybe snuck over here because they didn't have a legal way to get over here. But since they've been here, they've been good people and they're a part of communities. And that's what freaks people out, because when people thought about ICE, they thought, great, we're going to get rid of the gang members. They didn't think, great, you're going to get rid of a landscaper.
Trump is only turning up the heat on this, right? Like,
landscapers can say, everyone, like, God, white men, do you hear yourselves?
the actions around immigration and ICE, just because he's gone underwater on this issue in the polls does not mean that they are going to slow down on their operations at all. Just the opposite. And yesterday they rolled out these new kind of fascist trucks and cars that have Trump's name on it with Defend the Homeland. These kind of blood and soil type cars that they're going to be sending to places. They have all this additional funding for deportation centers, all this additional funding for ICE police, new people that are not going to be trained that well, something that my colleague Adrian Karaskia has been covering a lot at the Bulwark. We're going to have Dean Cain out there jumping out of vans and nabbing people, apparently, what he said he was planning on doing on Fox. So, this is not going to slow down. And so it is incumbent upon the Democrats to, I think, fight on this issue. And I think this is something that we've seen some change from over the past 8 months with the Democrats, where coming into the year, they thought immigration was a loser. Trump was popular on this issue. It's not worth fighting on. And I think kind of a combination of things, just how extreme their policies have been, the blowback to what we saw with El Salvador, people like Joe Rogan going out there. I mean, no Democrat wants to feel like they're getting to the right of Joe Rogan on immigration, right? And so I think there's a combination of things where Democrats have gotten some additional courage on this and realize that it can be a winning issue if they focus on the more extreme elements of it, the part.
Here's my thing. And again, I don't have a problem with Tim from the Bulwark. I play a lot of clips of his. I have a problem with the way he's framing this. Let me tell you something. You've been lied to about immigration. And some of us, the reason that I understand the correct solutions to immigration is meaningful legislation, actual pathways to citizenship and work visas, is because I understand how the U.S. economy functions, right? I understand the full picture of the gross domestic product, the type of employment, the amount of open jobs, the type of people that need to fill, or the type of labor we need to fill those jobs, and what other countries that labor is generally coming from. Yeah. Brown people don't have your money. As a matter of fact, they are paying into your retirement through ITIN numbers. And if we're talking about undocumented citizens, but ideally we would provide pathways to citizenships or just work visas. Hey, you want to work here and help us all retire, pay into our retirement? Cool. Sounds great. Please do. Let's create a pathway for these people to have work visas. You keep hearing Republicans saying Social Security is insolvent, which I could tell you how to fix that as well. I mean, tax the people that need to be taxed and take the cap off Social Security tax. What do I mean by the cap on Social Security tax? I think this year it's like at $164,000. So let's say Elon Musk makes $100 billion in a year. He pays Social Security tax on $164,000. But as all of the wealth, all of the generated income moves to the 1%, they are paying taxes on nothing. Now, if that wealth distribution and income was distributed out across what used to be the middle and lower classes, we would all be paying taxes on it, which would make our retirement solvent. Like, I love when Republicans bless dumb white males, conservatives' hearts. Like, they're like, I'm making a point. I'm smart. No, you're an idiot. You guys are. If you're not, then prove me wrong and learn something about math and the economy, and then I won't have to shame you guys anymore. Not a word you guys say makes any effing sense. You have no idea what's happened to the wealth distribution and why. If we don't, all of the money is now being generated and being paid out to the top of the economy, but they're not paying taxes on it. Certainly not into retirement. And then we're all wondering why this shit's not solvent. I can't help your guys' idiocy, but let's keep blaming brown people who are paying into our retirement. You know, even undocumented immigrants through ITIN numbers. What was it, 100 billion they paid, or 98 billion in 2023 into our retirement? Well, you guys refuse to tax billionaires. We have 45 years of trailing data now. Not a goddamn thing is trickling down. They pay no taxes. They don't increase wages. They just do stock buybacks. Nothing is trickling down. And we're not going to retire while you guys are like, if we tax a billionaire, they'll leave and go where? I know you can do it. I know you can figure this out. Just look into it. Oh, so this is DC's mayor, Muriel Bowser, talking about masked agents running around DC with masks on.
Why do they need masks? They're federal officials. They're paid by taxpayers. They should be doing their jobs in a way that's lawful and constitutional, and that's part of the job. And so I don't know why anybody needs to wear a mask. I think some people identified in some of these drug type situations that masks could be part of a PPE, if you will. That's not the case in the work that they're doing here. You mentioned a meeting I had with MPD, and one thing that the MPD officer said was, well, we don't wear masks. No one should be wearing masks. And our officers, they have a badge, they wear body-worn camera, they are clearly identified to members of the public.
So we wanted masks for an actual pandemic in the interest of public health, but the only time conservatives will approve masks is when they are federalizing the police force and terrorizing people, just like Mustache Man did in Germany in 1940s. Trump never had an original idea in his life. And I just want to say this. If you claim to be a conservative because MAGA men, your brains do not work, you can't count. You can't count. Trump has spent more money. Doge saved zero money, spent more money, spent hundreds of billions more, grew the size of federal government. We have less jobs in this country. The job report is dismal. Fewer people are employed. Inflation is up. He's done nothing. Do you know the price of wholesale food went up like... Actually, I don't want to say the wrong numbers. I should just look it up. We've never, you think the price of food, the price of the wholesale goods report is telling of what's trickling down to grocery stores next, right? Like the price of wholesale, actually, Oh my gosh, I think our de facto God made a video about this yesterday, which I'm going to play that. Like, you think food is expensive now? Just wait. Trump has not done one thing in line with fiscal conservatism. So either you just need to say, I'm an idiot and I like being cucked by a line grifter, or you need to start looking into things. Those are your two options. Just say, I have no idea what I'm talking about. Like, my parents were Republicans. I'm kind of a racist. Like, I just thought like I would go with this. That would be the most honest thing you could say at this point. Nothing else makes sense. You're not benefiting.
Trump seems to have given up on trying to make groceries cheaper. But wasn't that what the entire election was supposedly about?
I won on two things, the border, and I won on groceries. It's a very simple word, groceries.
Well, now he admits he won't be lowering grocery prices after all. He told Time magazine, quote, I'd like to bring them down. It's hard to bring things down once they're up. You know, it's very hard. Yes, it will be hard because of Trump's economic plans. What are they exactly? Well, first, Trump plans to slash the top corporate tax rate to just 15%, which would result in the 5 largest grocery stores getting a collective $1.7 billion tax cut. But do you think they will pass those savings on to you? Think again. The year after Trump cut the corporate tax rate in his first term, the largest corporations spent a then record $806 billion on stock buybacks, juicing their own share prices and lining the pockets of their executives and shareholders. Walmart, the nation's largest grocer, has spent $43 billion on buybacks since 2018. If Trump is rewarding grocery stores and food...
Just want you to know, which I can play that. I think I actually recorded this. Maybe I should hold on. And it's in this presentation. After all of these tax cuts, what do you think Walmart's doing with that money? Do you think they're going to lower prices? Do you think they're going to pay their employees a living wage? No, they announced they're raising prices. As a matter of fact, they're making food more expensive. They announced this yesterday in their Q3 prospectus. They're raising their price matrix. They are raising the prices of anything, which has already started happening. Like, I have like almost a photographic memory, and I talked about how I'm fascinated by pricing algorithms online. Oh yeah, prices are already raising. But after all of these tax breaks, after all the cuck MAGA men were like, let's not tax corporations, let's not tax billionaires, it's all gonna trickle down. And what happened? None of it trickled down. As a matter of fact, they announced that we're going to pay more. And Kamala Harris talked about this. This is what she meant by price gouging, using price algorithms to charge different people online different prices for the same products, to use the fear of Trump's tariffs. Even though, like, let's say with aluminum, right? He announced those huge aluminum tariffs, then they got a reprieve, but these aluminum corporations are still raising their prices. The same thing happened during the pandemic. They used the fear of the pandemic long after the economy was recovering to continue baking in price hikes that they then blamed on Joe Biden. All of this is mathematically proven. People who can look at data know this. We tried to explain it to Republicans. When Kamala Harris tried to say this, what did they say? Socialist? No, you're just an idiot. No one's a socialist. You're dumb. It's not Kamala's brain. It's yours.
Distributors with more tax cuts, why wouldn't they just line their pockets again? Second, grocery prices will skyrocket thanks to Trump's proposed 25% tariffs on imports from Mexico and Canada. That's because our neighbors to the north and south are two of our biggest agricultural trading partners, accounting for $84 billion worth of food and beverage imports in 2023. And despite what Trump says, tariffs are not paid by other countries. They're paid by us at the checkout line.
And you guarantee American families won't pay more?
I can't guarantee anything. I can't guarantee tomorrow.
Third, Trump's appointee to head the Federal Trade Commission, Andrew Ferguson, has vowed to end the agency's war on mergers. This will lead to less competition in a food industry that's already dominated by just a few corporations. Research shows that markets with fewer competitors have higher prices, which means you'll be paying even more for groceries. That's why the Biden administration sued to block the merger between mega grocers Kroger and Albertsons. They want
I found the statistic. Wholesale fresh vegetable prices rose by 38.9% last month. 38.9%. So wholesale is the cost to buy in bulk, and then they raise the price to consumer. So understand what that's indicative of is the price hikes coming down the pipeline for the rest of us. Walmart used all of their buying power to front load and buy so much inventory prior to Trump getting in office when they started fearing these tariffs. And all of that inventory is out. And if anyone's listened to me talk, I talked about this for a long time, that real economists, not insecure MAGA men who can't read or do math, know and have said, the worst of this is not even coming before next year, right? We're not even close. We haven't begun to feel the pain of Trump's idiocy and grifting.
that battle, but big food corporations are licking their chops to gobble up the competition when the Trump administration gives them the green light. Fourth, Trump's cruelest promise of all is deporting.
One said you can't pre-buy wholesale vegetables. Yeah, you can. You can lock in the price through negotiation with other countries and places you move it from. You can. That is Walmart's buying power. They're the largest retailer in the country. Right? You can use a ton of money and say, you're going to supply us for X amount, however much they were liquid for, right? And front load and use that contract. You can.
Millions of immigrants whose hard work is crucial to our food supply.
On day one, I will launch the largest deportation program in American history.
Around 1.7 million undocumented people work across the food supply chain in America. Farms, dairies, ranches, and food processors all rely on undocumented workers. Experts agree that mass deportations will result in labor shortages.
And Walmart's moving this product a lot of the times, especially with produce. When we talk about wholesale from Mexico, where labor is still cheap. But understand, when we talk about dairy farms, and if you're buying local as inputs meaning what it takes to produce something becomes more expensive. Farmers, dairy farm, everybody needs to charge more. So everything being made inside the U.S. by farmers their inputs become more expensive. Aluminum, steel, the stuff it takes to feed their animals, everything becomes more expensive because of Trump's tariffs. So now you can't wholesale at the same rates any longer, and you're being priced out by people in other countries whose inputs are still low. And I tried to talk about all of this. It's a joke. Nobody wants to listen to what Trump's doing to our economy and how Donald Trump and Donald Trump alone are driving us into bankruptcy. But that's the point. Every time we lose and we transfer wealth to the top of the economy, we lose power. And truly, that's the point of all of this. But since MAGA men are convinced they know everything, and as long as they keep giving Trump Andrew Jacksons, he's somehow going to take care of them. He promised. It doesn't make any sense. I was not here. I want to show you guys something else as long as we're talking about Robert Reich. This is so much for being tough on crime. Trump saying that Trump is, I should say, pathologically lying about crime in D.C. Well, this is how tough Trump isn't on crime. In 6 months. So if you have, and I've talked about this is your dream, MAGA men, because your brains don't work. You've created a society where if you're rich, if you're a corporation, if you're a billionaire, there's a pardon for you. You're not a criminal. Here is the crime we should use our tax dollars to prosecute, because it would keep our prices and our cost of living lower. In 6 months, the Trump administration has withdrawn or halted enforcement actions against 165 corporations. 1 in 4 of the corporations benefiting is from the tech sector. I mean, this is the crime we need to prosecute to keep costs lower. And they lobbied Trump. This is why we need to get money out of politics as well. This is why we need to stop insider trading in Congress. This is the result. I love when MAGA met. One of the dumbest things MAGA talks about is Trump's going to deregulate. Trump's going to deregulate. This is deregulation. That's what you're watching. Not prosecuting corporate raiders, corporations, and tech billionaires for their crimes and letting them create huge monopolies, do illegal things, not regulating capitalism, creating a model of, hey, if you bribe me, you can do whatever you want. That kills small business in America. No small business owner can enter this market. I was just clipping something of a small business owner talking about how the cost of inputs is putting them out of business as a result of tariffs. But this is your dream because you don't understand how deregulation is going to affect small business. It's not good for small business. It puts them out. It prices them out of the market. This is why everyone should learn something about the economy so you don't sound dumb. Here's the other thing that happens when, hey, there's no criminals if you have money to bribe Trump in crony capitalism. You can do anything you want. Now Trump's dream is really becoming real. He's killing unions. Any ability we have to organize and get paid a living wage, which we now know, 45 years of data, we don't tax corporations, we don't tax rich people. It doesn't result in more wages for us. As a matter of fact, the exact opposite. It results in stock buybacks. Now we know for sure.
Ladies and gentlemen, two of the richest men on the planet are trying to destroy unions once and for all. In this corner, we have Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos. In the opposing corner, we have organized labor and American workers. We have seen a matchup like this in almost a century. Musk's SpaceX and Bezos' Amazon are both arguing in court that the National Labor Relations Board is unconstitutional on the grounds that it combines judicial and executive functions. The National Labor Relations Board is the agency that supervises union organizing and collective bargaining, as established by the National Labor Relations Act of 1935, a cornerstone of FDR's New Deal that guarantees the right of workers to organize. It is, in effect, the referee of labor management relations. If Bezos and Musk get their way, two of the richest people in the world will have gutted the enforcement of labor laws designed to protect the right of average workers to unionize. Corporations could fire employees who try to organize without any repercussions. It could also be a death knell to unions that already exist. Corporate giants Starbucks and Trader Joe's have advanced similar anti-worker arguments. So much for being progressive companies, huh? Beyond their copycat legal arguments, what do all of these companies have in common? A history of bashing unions and preventing workers from exercising their right to organize. The National Labor Relations Board has charged these companies with hundreds of violations of workers' rights. These companies have fired pro-union workers, retaliated against organizers by cutting their hours, closed stores that tried to unionize, denied benefits being provided to non-union workers, and refused to bargain. And now Musk and Bezos are even going after the referees, the National Labor Relations Board, so unions and workers don't stand a chance. It's not the first time their argument has been trotted out by robber barons.
Or one of the things we know for sure, I mean, other than Elon Musk saving zero money with his fake Doge, was that he stole all of the data from the National Labor Relations Board, all of the information about every person in the country that ever filed a labor dispute. That we know through whistleblowers and people in IT that worked for the NLRB. And now they're going to use the conservative Supreme Court to try to eliminate it, period. So there's no, and that was what I used to, when I believed that MAGA men were not as dumb as I now for sure know they are. Like, I don't question anymore. They're dumb as rocks. I used to try to explain, you keep saying growing the size of the federal government is corrupt and the federal government is printing money. No, you got to follow the money. The corruption is the money being put into the federal government. Trump has doubled the size. Trump's grown the size of the federal government. He hasn't spent less. The federal government has always been contracted workers, which I talked about, but God knows. Actual civil servants that worked for the federal government were doing good things. But when billions and billions of dollars are inputted and you're lobbying to bribe people inside the federal government, that's the problem. We've printed money because money is concentrated at the top of the economy, and we're not using marginal tax rates to tax it back down so it recirculates. So whenever the economy fails, because we are deregulating and we have corrupt business people doing all sorts of crazy things to make more and more money, and